It wasn't long ago that Marvel Studios ruled the world. From Iron Man in 2008 to the jaw-dropping climax of Avengers Endgame in 2019, Marvel felt unstoppable. Every movie was an event. Every post-credit scene a promise of something massive on the horizon. But now, the excitement is gone. What once felt like a cultural movement has fizzled into background noise. People aren't counting down to the next Marvel release. They're wondering if it's even worth watching at all.
Give me that. You have the little one.
You've probably felt it too. Maybe you watched The Marvels or Quantumania and thought, this just doesn't hit the same. Maybe you haven't even bothered to keep up. You're not alone. Box office numbers are dropping, fans are tuning out, and even Marvel's own executives are admitting there's a problem.
Turn it off. Now!
Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, recently confessed they lost focus by pumping out too much content too fast. Critics say Marvel has turned into homework, more obligation than entertainment. And here's the wild part. Marvel knows it. Behind closed doors, they're scrambling to fix what's broken. In this video, we're breaking down exactly how Marvel went from the top of the world to a creative crisis.
If you help me.
From rushed VFX and franchise fatigue to bloated storylines and a total collapse at the box office, we'll show you why Marvel Studios sucks now and what might be next. And trust me, by the time we hit the part about Thunderbolts and the chaos behind the scenes, you'll realize it's even worse than you think. Here's where things started to spiral. After the massive success of Endgame, Marvel decided to crank it up to 11. Instead of a couple of movies a year, suddenly we were drowning in content. In 2021 alone, they released 4 movies: Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, and Spider-Man: No Way Home, plus 5 Disney Plus shows like WandaVision and Loki. At first, fans were excited, but that excitement didn't last.
VA is gone.
I think you mean ATV, and no, we got in 2 of them last week.
By the time Phase 4 wrapped, viewers were overwhelmed, each story connected to another. Miss a show? You're lost in the next movie. It stopped being fun. It started feeling like homework. Even Kevin Feige, the mastermind behind the MCU, admitted they may have overextended. Bob Iger echoed this sentiment, saying the franchise had suffered from dilution. Too much content, too fast. It's not just the quantity, it's the lack of breathing room. When you're constantly bombarded with new Marvel content, nothing feels special. Remember how huge Infinity War felt? Now compare that to how you felt about Secret Invasion. Exactly. And it's not just fans who are speaking up. Even creators have had enough. Director Danny Boyle slammed franchise filmmaking for stifling originality. Alex Garland, director of Civil War, warned that studios like Marvel are flooding the market with risk-free, formulaic content that leaves no space for fresh ideas. The numbers back it up too. Engagement is plummeting. Disney Plus Marvel shows like Ms. Marvel and Echo posted some of the lowest viewing numbers in MCU history. People are skipping stuff, or worse, giving up altogether. Marvel overshot. Instead of making people crave more, they stuffed the plate until everyone was too full to care. And we're only getting started, because what's coming next involves rushed scripts, broken visual effects teams, and billion-dollar flops. Let's be honest, even when Marvel was pumping out tons of content, we might have forgiven it if the quality had stayed high.
Hey, Peter Parker. You got something for me?
But somewhere between Endgame and Echo, something broke. The spark that made the Marvel Cinematic Universe a cultural phenomenon fizzled out. Fans started noticing it, critics started writing about it, and even Marvel's own insiders have admitted it. The creative engine is running on fumes. You could feel it in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It was supposed to launch the next major saga of the MCU, introducing a terrifying new villain in Kang the Conqueror. Instead, We got a story that felt like it was assembled by committee, written with placeholder dialogue, and rushed through post-production. The jokes didn't land, the pacing was off, and even die-hard fans were left scratching their heads. What was once sharp and innovative now feels tired and sloppy. Then there's The Marvels, which paired 3 female leads in what could have been a dynamic team-up. Instead, it ended up being one of the most confusing and least emotionally engaging movies Marvel's ever put out. It had all the visual effects and high-stakes action, but none of the heart. And when you spend over $200 million and still can't connect with audiences, you've got a serious problem. The issue, according to insiders, lies in Marvel's new production model. It's no longer about finding the best story, it's about hitting the release date. Filmmakers have spoken out about how Marvel prioritizes timelines over scripts. James Gunn, who helped redefine superhero storytelling with Guardians of the Galaxy, pointed out that when release dates become more important than storytelling, quality suffers. Marvel is no longer a studio guided by passion. It's a content machine chasing deadlines. And it shows. Marvel movies have become formulaic. The blueprint is always the same. Sarcastic hero, quirky sidekick, massive third-act CGI battle, and a tease for the next chapter. What once felt fresh and self-aware now feels stale and predictable. Even Dakota Johnson, who stars in Sony's Madam Web, criticized how these films are made. She said the experience felt like actors were being plugged into a system, rather than being chosen for their unique presence or chemistry. Let's talk about the CGI. You'd think with billion-dollar budgets, Marvel would be pushing the limits of visual effects. Instead, we're seeing rushed, incomplete, and sometimes downright embarrassing VFX sequences. According to reports from VFX artists, Marvel's production schedules are so aggressive, the artists barely have time to complete basic rendering, let alone polish the final product. One artist described it as being in a pressure cooker with no escape. Scenes are often edited just weeks before release, leaving effects teams scrambling to patch things together. The result? Clunky visuals that would have been unacceptable 10 years ago. Even Marvel's most successful directors are seeing the cracks. The Russo brothers, who gave us Infinity War and Endgame, have admitted that the studio's obsession with interconnectivity, the need for every story to link into a giant web, is damaging individual storytelling. And they're right. It's hard to care about a character's emotional arc when every scene is about multiverse lore or teasing 10 other spin-offs. Marvel used to feel like the gold standard in blockbuster storytelling. Now, it feels like a franchise on autopilot, creatively drained and stuck in a cycle of reboots, crossovers, and recycled ideas. And while fans may still show up out of habit, more and more are walking away, realizing the magic just isn't there anymore. Now let's talk numbers, because if creative decline wasn't bad enough, Marvel's bottom line is also taking serious hits. For a studio that once seemed like a license to print money, the recent box office numbers are shocking. Start with The Marvels.
Before I was an Avenger, I made mistakes.
This movie was a historic low for the MCU. It didn't just underperform, it bombed. With a budget reportedly north of $200 million in marketing costs pushing that number even higher, the film couldn't even crack $100 million domestically. Worldwide, it barely scraped past $200 million, making it the worst-performing MCU movie of all time. Let that sink in. A brand with global appeal couldn't even turn a profit on a tentpole film. Then there's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It was supposed to launch the new big bad of the MCU, Kang the Conqueror, and kick off Phase 5 with a bang. Instead, it fell flat with both audiences and critics. The film opened strong, but word of mouth killed it.
No! Look, we can talk about this.
Don't do it!
You really should.
It collapsed in its second weekend, losing nearly 70% of its audience. And it couldn't even match the box office total of the first Ant-Man movie from 2015, despite a far bigger budget. Even Thor: Love and Thunder, which featured a major A-list cast and the return of director Taika Waititi, failed to hit expectations. It grossed $760 million worldwide. Not a flop by most standards, but a letdown compared to the billion-dollar haul of Thor: Ragnarok. Plus, the reviews were brutal. Fans criticized its tonal whiplash, paper-thin villain, and over-reliance on jokes. The big picture is even worse. Of the 13 Marvel movies released since 2020, only 6 have crossed the $500 million mark. That's a huge drop from the days when almost every Marvel release could expect to make $800 million to over $1 billion. Disney shareholders are starting to notice, and so is Marvel. So, what's happening? It's a combination of factors. Franchise fatigue, poor word of mouth, audiences burned out by Disney Plus content, and maybe, just maybe, people are finally tired of being sold the same product with a different wrapper. There's also competition. When Barbie and Oppenheimer dropped in the same summer, both films crushed it at the box office. Not because they were part of a universe, but because they were bold, original, and actually good. Marvel movies used to be the cinematic event. Now they're just there. The financial failures are a wake-up call, both for the studio and the audience. Marvel's invincibility was always based on two things: consistency and hype. But when the quality drops and the hype dies, the numbers follow, and fast. Marvel isn't just losing at the box office. It's losing the cultural momentum it spent over a decade building. And now, as we'll see in the next part, the chaos behind the scenes is only making things worse. If you thought the flops and fatigue were bad, wait until you hear what's going on behind the scenes. Marvel's problems aren't just creative or financial, they're structural. And the chaos at the executive level is spilling over into every corner of production. Let's start with the sheer pace. After the success of Disney Plus, Marvel was ordered to ramp up content like never before. Suddenly, the studio that used to release 2 or 3 carefully planned films a year was churning out multiple series and movies at once. This wasn't about storytelling. It was about feeding the streaming machine. And that machine has been grinding people down. Visual effects artists were among the first to speak up. In 2022 and 2023, VFX crews began coming forward anonymously, describing unbearable workloads, insane deadlines, and a culture of last-minute changes. One artist described it as a factory with no breaks. Projects were being reworked midway through post-production. Whole sequences were scrapped and redone in the final weeks. The result? Unfinished visuals, sloppy effects, and exhausted teams. And then came the fallout. Victoria Alonso, a longtime Marvel executive who oversaw VFX production, was suddenly fired in 2023. Officially, it was tied to contract issues. But insiders say it was the boiling point of long-standing tensions over mismanagement and unrealistic expectations.
It was challenging because one thing is to be there for a little bit, the other thing is to be there for a long time.
Alonso's departure didn't solve the problem. It just exposed how broken the system had become. The chaos wasn't limited to VFX. Directors and writers have also complained about a lack of creative control. Marvel's infamous blueprint often limits what filmmakers can do. That's why many projects feel the same, no matter who's directing. Everything is filtered through the same lens, guided by release dates and interconnectivity rather than vision or originality. Even internal leadership has been shaken. Marvel's attempt to launch a TV empire ran into problems fast. Secret Invasion, for example, underwent major rewrites during filming, and its budget ballooned to over $200 million for a streaming series.
You're flailing. You're weak.
And it bombed. Viewership was low, reviews were worse, and even the actors seemed confused about the plot. Kevin Feige, once seen as the brain behind Marvel's success, has been stretched thin. Running a cinematic universe, multiple streaming shows, and launching new characters while managing damage control? It's too much, even for him. And that strain is starting to show in the final product. The bottom line is clear. Marvel Studios, once a model of precision and long-term planning, is now plagued by production bottlenecks, burnout, and executive dysfunction. Movies are rushed, shows are rewritten mid-shoot, creative teams are handcuffed by corporate strategy, and the result? A studio that's not just losing its edge, it's falling apart from the inside. But here's the twist. Marvel knows this, and now they're trying to change course. Whether it's too late, well, that's where we're headed next. Here's where things get really interesting, because Marvel isn't blind. They see the numbers, they hear the fans, and they know they've got a major problem. That's why, over the past year, the studio has finally started acknowledging the cracks in the armor and shifting gears in a big way. Bob Iger, CEO of Disney, came out and said it plainly. Marvel has produced too much, too fast. In his words, less is more. That's a massive statement from the top, and it signals a real change in strategy. Instead of flooding the market, Marvel plans to scale back, focusing on fewer projects with better quality control. One of the most telling signs? The new direction for Thunderbolts. Originally seen as another team-up movie in the Marvel formula, insiders say Marvel is now reworking it with a completely different tone. The goal? Make it feel like an indie thriller. Think something closer to what A24 would produce. They want it to stand out, not just slot into the usual MCU mold. It's a risky pivot, but it shows Marvel is trying to break its own formula. There's also a renewed focus on standalone stories. Rather than endless multiverse tie-ins, Marvel is looking to ground its next wave of content. Projects like the rebooted Daredevil Born Again are being restructured from the ground up, with new creative teams and a more focused narrative.
I could say the same about you.
The mayor serves his city.
The hope is to recapture what made earlier Marvel shows like Daredevil and Jessica Jones fan favorites, compelling characters and tight storytelling. Even behind the scenes, the leadership model is changing. Marvel is reportedly hiring dedicated showrunners for its Disney Plus series, something they avoided before. Previously, the studio treated its series like extended movies, leading to pacing issues and unclear creative vision. With showrunners in charge, they're aiming for more consistent, well-crafted television. And then there's the Kang situation. With Jonathan Majors out after legal issues, Marvel is reportedly reevaluating its entire multiverse arc. That's no small thing. Kang was supposed to be the next Thanos. Now, Marvel may pivot toward other villains or entirely new directions. Some rumors suggest a bigger focus on grounded characters, like the X-Men, or exploring fresh narratives disconnected from the multiverse chaos. It's clear that Marvel is trying to course-correct, slowing down, focusing on quality, and giving creators more room to breathe. But the real question is, will audiences give them another shot? We've seen franchises bounce back before. Fast and Furious, Mission Impossible, even DC with the Batman. But Marvel's challenge is unique. They aren't just fixing one bad movie. They're trying to rewire an entire machine that's been in overdrive for more than a decade.
And Ritter's the match.
I can take care of myself.
And whether or not they can pull it off, that's still up in the air. But one thing's for sure, the Marvel of tomorrow won't look like the Marvel of yesterday. To really understand Marvel's fall, we have to zoom out. Because this isn't happening in a vacuum. It's part of a bigger shift in how audiences view blockbuster entertainment. And if Marvel doesn't adapt fast, it risks being left behind. Let's talk about Barbenheimer, the unexpected cultural moment when Barbie and Oppenheimer dominated the summer of 2023. These two completely different films shattered expectations, brought audiences back to theaters, and sparked massive online buzz. Why? Because they were original, director-driven, and not part of some endless cinematic universe. That's what audiences are gravitating toward now. Fresh ideas, bold storytelling, films that stand on their own. Meanwhile, Marvel, once a trailblazer, is starting to feel like homework. You can't just jump into a new Marvel movie anymore. You've got to watch 3 shows and remember plot points from 6 years ago. People are tired. At the same time, other studios are stepping up. DC, for all its misfires, landed big with The Batman, a gritty, standalone noir thriller that felt like a breath of fresh air. Amazon's Invincible has built a loyal fan base by being everything Marvel isn't: unpredictable, emotionally raw, and not afraid to kill its darlings. The truth is, Marvel created the modern cinematic universe model, and now it's trapped in it. Every story has to connect. Every character has to come back. It's no longer about telling great stories. It's about maintaining the machine. And in 2025, that machine is looking real rusty. Critics have been warning about this for years. When everything is a franchise, nothing feels special. When every story has to lead to the next one, you stop caring about this one. And that's exactly where Marvel is stuck. It's not too late to change. But first, Marvel has to realize that audiences have moved on. And it's time to catch up. So, why does Marvel Studios suck now? It's not just one thing. It's everything. Oversaturation turned excitement into exhaustion. Creative shortcuts replaced careful storytelling. Blockbusters bombed. Visuals declined. Executives clashed. And fans? They stopped caring. The Marvel Cinematic Universe used to be something people had to see. Now it's something people might catch on Disney Plus, if they're bored. What once felt like an unstoppable force has lost its spark, bogged down by too much content, too little innovation, and a studio system that prioritized quantity over quality. But here's the kicker. This story isn't over. Marvel's top brass knows the machine is broken. They're slowing down, rethinking, and trying to course correct. Whether that works remains to be seen. The next few years will decide everything. Will Marvel bounce back and reignite the magic? Or will it become just another relic of a cinematic era that burned too bright, too fast? One thing's for sure. If they want people to care again, they can't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. If you made it this far, you clearly care about where Marvel's headed. So hit that like button, subscribe, and let us know in the comments, can Marvel be saved?